This is the South Carolina Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame was started actually by a person named Bob Pryor, and it was when I was mayor of Myrtle Beach. Bob was a public relations man from CBS in Philadelphia, and he came down here to retire and went to work for the Myrtle Beach Chamber of Commerce as a $1 a year man, and was going through the files of the chamber and found a charter for a South Carolina Hall of Fame. He took on the project of starting the Hall of Fame and came to me, and we got permission to use the convention center. At the time, there was a balcony above the entrance hall, and we got the balcony upstairs and started the Hall of Fame up there by putting some portraits up to the wall. We put in some cabinets to accommodate the portraits in the Hall of Fame. So that was the original, and we used to use for the ceremony itself, we had a room in the back where we would serve a luncheon, and you could buy tickets to the lunch for the Hall of Fame luncheon, and then the ceremony followed. And then after that, we decided to move into the auditorium as it became more popular. My term as mayor ran out, and Bob Pryor asked me if I would help him out with the Hall of Fame as vice president, and I agreed to do that. And shortly after that, Bob's health began to fail, and he asked me if I would take it over. So I did that, took it over, and for the next 26 years, I was the president and chairman of the board of the Hall of Fame. So it was a long time to serve, and Bob was great, but he died shortly afterward. All the signers of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, yeah, are in the Hall of Fame. They there are 10 of each, I guess, of the signers.
The official schalloffame.com is where you can find us online. Hello, I'm Randall Wallace, Chairman of the Board of Trustees for the South Carolina Hall of Fame. I'm very proud of this organization because we've done a good job, I think, of including everybody and having a wide range of people that are have been inducted. 103 inductees in all fields, and like I said, I'm very proud that we've done that. That we've been able to find a good cross section of people that would go in.
This is Walter Cronkite, and this is the South Carolina Hall of Fame. It was established in 1973 to honor those South Carolinians, past and present, who have made valuable contributions to American life, its culture, and its history. Here we take note of their accomplishments. We invite you to consult the biographical information in connection with each portrait on display as we strive to keep alive the traditions and the ideals that have shaped Carolina's greatness.
Francis Salvador was the first Jewish American elected to public office in the country, and then he was also the first Jewish American killed in the American Revolution. And he was 29. He did a lot in 29 years.
This is Walter Cronkite, and this is the South Carolina Hall of Fame. It was established in 1973 to honor those South Carolinians, past and present, who have made valuable contributions to American life, its culture, and its history. Here we take note of their accomplishments. We invite you to consult the biographical information in connection with each portrait on display as we strive to keep alive the traditions and the ideals that have shaped Carolina's greatness.
I think as time has gone by and you see the number we have now, over like 103, I think, inductees now, you really get a sense of how diverse the state is and all the different ways that you can contribute, from being an astronaut to governors and the political figures, to the guy that invented the laser, to the civil rights movement folks. There's a teachers, educators, there's a lot of different ways you can go, and I think anybody that comes here can be inspired by somebody that's in the hall.
My roommate in World War II was a fellow by the name of Bill Clark. And Bill was President Bush's roommate at Yale. And so Bill had a place that he stayed at Pawleys Island from time to time, and Bush and Barbara and George Bush were going to come down there for a party, and so he called me and invited me to the party. We went down and spent some time with them again, and it was another fine affair. There were so many. Almost every induction ceremony, something would come up that was different and unusual.
The official schalloffame.com is where you can find us online.
Benjamin Mays was an educator in Georgia, and he was inducted or selected for induction and became quite ill. So he said that there was no way he was going to be able to make it here to the beach. And Jimmy Carter was going to deliver the induction speech for Benjamin Mays. So at the time, Rick Dickinson was in charge of Encore Videos, and every year he did the videos of the ceremonies, and we had tapes of them. And so Rick said that he was going to be able to televise this situation if we could get over to Atlanta to maybe get Benjamin Mays in his home. So we did that. We went over to Atlanta, and Benjamin Mays had his home there, and he had a large recreation room, and we had the ceremony, and Jimmy Carter come over to the home, and we had the induction ceremony there.
Right off the top of my head, just because I did some research, Mary McLeod Bethune is in, who, and I think Septima Poinsett Clark were both teachers. And, you know, Miss Clark was responsible for a huge number of people going through her classes and getting registered to vote in the early days of the Civil Rights Movement. One of the things is that people don't realize about that is that the two or three that we've got in from the early day, Dr. Mays and Mrs. Clark, were, you know, they didn't get the attention because they're like a generation before Dr. King and Rosa Parks. But Rosa Parks was in her class, or took the class that she was doing. And then, you know, Martin Luther King Jr. went to Morehouse College when he was 15, and Dr. Mays kind of was his mentor. So they're the generation before the ones who made all the headlines. So we have a kind of a foundational role in all this.
The position of President of the Hall of Fame was a fun job and an honor, really, because there's some of the wonderful people that you were honoring. You had a chance to have a direct relationship with them and talk with them and to be recognized. The way the nominating process is, we try to keep one, politics out of it, or contributions where somebody would give some money to the Hall of Fame and then in return they'd be inducted or something. We tried to avoid any possibility of criticism. I used to get supporting letters from politicians who would say that so-and-so done a job, you shouldn't put them in the Hall of Fame. And I'd say, well, there's a process. We don't do that. Inductees is you have to either be a citizen of South Carolina or a major contribution to South Carolina when in your career. Each one of the historical societies each year would nominate one contemporary and one deceased inductee. And there are 10 historical districts in the state of South Carolina. So we got 20 nominees, and the board of directors would make their decision from the nominations. Strom Thurmond was our senator, and he was inducted early on, and his tribute was paid by George Bush, who was then vice president of the United States, and he came down with his wife. Jimmy Carter was very nice. He's a nice guy. As a matter of fact, another story with Jimmy Carter. When Jimmy Carter announced his run for the presidency, his sponsor was John Generette, and you knew John well. And so John arranged for the initial event of his announcement was done at Pine Lakes Country Club. And John hosted Jimmy to come here. I was mayor at the time, and I went to the luncheon. And so I spent some time with him then, with John. Yes, she was from Hartsville, yeah. And she was a very, very distinguished lady and was were thrilled with the induction ceremony, and I remember her well. I can remember some of the ones that particularly that were impressive, I think, to me. One of the first was General Westmoreland. He was chief of all armed forces in Washington, and he had been a hero over in Vietnam. He was in charge of all forces there. And for the ceremony, we had the Army band here, and they had written a special song for the occasion, for the Hall of Fame, which they played, and it was well received. When the air base, of course, was closed out there, the Strom, I asked Strom if we could get joint use of the Myrtle Beach Air Force Base at the time, and he said that he would try to set up a meeting with the Air Force officials in Washington, and he and I went up there and met before him, and I'll never forget the way Strom handled that thing. He orchestrated that meeting with the Air Force guys, you know, you can do this and do that and everything else, and they all nodded their heads, and so we got joint use of the air base. We were able to open a civilian side of the air base, and that was in 1975, and in 1977 we annexed the air base into the city of Myrtle Beach. So there were two big occasions at that time. He was a PhD who was the inventor of the laser beam. Early on, he invented he was one of the early inductees. Well, we inducted Dizzy Gillespie. Dizzy Gillespie was a famous musician at that time, and he came down and one of the things he asked for, he said, Bob, do we have some time that during the day he'd come early, that he'd like to go over around Hartsville to visit some of his old friends. So I said, sure, we can arrange that. Dizzy and I enjoyed his friends, and he enjoyed the old times together. Dizzy was certainly the most colorful and well known too. He called me one time and he had a hologram of himself that he had gotten from somewhere, and he wanted to donate it to the Hall of Fame. And I said, Dizzy, we don't have any place for it. We don't have anything but portraits. But he had this hologram, so I had to turn him down.
This is Walter Cronkite, and this is the South Carolina Hall of Fame. It was established in 1973 to honor those South Carolinians, past and present, who have made valuable contributions to American life, its culture, and its history. Here we take note of their accomplishments. We invite you to consult the biographical information in connection with each portrait on display as we strive to keep alive the traditions and the ideals that have shaped Carolina's greatness.
Well, I think, to give the credit to the folks before me, they've done a good job about making sure they invited the kids to come to like the induction ceremony. They do the thing with the living, the contemporary nominee where he comes in and talks to them before the induction ceremony. And I think the videos that deal with SCETV has been a real asset, because now you don't even have to, for the kids that don't have the opportunity to come, you can go online and pull all of them up. Some of them are 2 minutes if they don't have the longest attention spans in the world, but there's the 8-minute videos that are pretty in-depth. I'd like to utilize that more. When those videos started, we were still in the days of having to go to a kiosk and hit a button, and we had them out around the state. But now you can go online and they're right there. So I'd like to just keep embracing whatever the new technology is to keep it out there, easy access for everybody. And then really work maybe with the school systems to make sure that and I think SCETV does some of that to make sure that the kids in the school systems have access to them and the teachers can use them, because I do think there's a lot here that can inspire young people so that they know, hey, there's, you can go on and do great things, because that's, you got to get to them when they're young, I think, to get them motivated and have the ambition.
At one induction, and I'm trying to think of which one it was, they surprised me with a award of the Order of the Palmetto at the dinner before the induction ceremony the following day, and Governor Sanford was the one at the time that gave me that, and the Order of the Palmetto is the highest civilian order that is given in the state of South Carolina. That was not only a great honor, but a big surprise. Some other folks in there. Governor West, who was the governor in the early 70s, was a pretty brave guy about a lot of the upheaval that was going on in society at the time. He tackled it head on. He hired Congressman Jim Clyburn in the Human Rights Affairs organization at the time to look into and delve into the issues that were going on in South Carolina.
on race relations and all that. So he was pretty brave about tackling a controversial issue right off the bat.
She was the most loyal of any of the inductees. She came every year for the induction ceremony, and I'd introduce her.
In the case of Stanley Donen, who was a movie director, they know all of his movies, Singing in the Rain, Charade, all those Cary Grant movies that he was in, and Gene Kelly, I was trying to remember. Those were all big, huge movies. Carter burned him while he was here. Not only was he inducted, but he said Mass at the local church, St. Andrews, down here. And I happened to be a extraordinary minister of the Eucharist at St. Andrews, so I was there at the ceremony, and he said Mass, and it was announced beforehand, so we had a good crowd there at the church, and it was nice to have that occasion. He was a good inductee too. He was also very appreciative of the honor he received as a high school football coach.
Jim Edwards was a doctor. He was an oral surgeon and was a very prominent, and he took over as head of the president of the School of Medicine for the University of Charleston. Yeah, well, as I say, we had a very, very effective energy office there and did a lot of good things. And they were recognized by Reagan when he became president. And Jim was just finishing his term. And so that's why I said, Jim said, well, we're going to Washington. And I said, you're going to Washington.
I do think it's good to get out and talk to young people. It just so happens that I was at South Carolina State this weekend, right? So, and they put the students in the class with me, and you were able to go through and show them all these graduates, all the folks that were involved in the civil rights movement. And I was kind of proud because we also had gone to Cecil Williams's museum, the Civil Rights Museum there, and everybody that he had on the wall that was from South Carolina is already in the Hall of Fame.
was the astronaut who landed on the moon. So, and that was kind of the opening of the Hall of Fame. Charles Duke was the first inductee. So he came back a couple of times after that to attend the ceremonies too. So he was a very, very prominent man, and made a big opening for the Hall of Fame. Bobby Richardson was played with the New York Yankees for several years, and was from Sumter. And so when we inducted Bobby Richardson, he was a very good friend of one of our board members at the time, and so Bobby knew many people, and so we had good crowds, and he was a wonderful candidate. He was a great man and is alive today. As a matter of fact, just recently I received a book in the mail that Bobby had written a book, and he sent me an autographed copy of it, and with a nice note to go with it, and that was very, very nice. Cale Yarbrough was when the inductee, and I think he brought the whole town over. But he was one of the most excited guys of being inducted into the Hall of Fame, I think, of anybody who had. He was just thrilled.
officialschallofFame.com is where you can find us online. Joe Frazier, who we just put in, talking to his son about Joe Frazier's actual growing up in life. I mean, he came from nothing to be the world champion and one of the biggest household names in all of sports. And you know, there's plenty of the other folks in the Hall of Fame that I think can serve as an inspiration of what you can do. You know, coming from even a state that's, you know, rural and small towns, a lot of it here. Well, one of the things that they have done traditionally the whole time is invite I think it's the 8th graders that are doing the social studies classes to come. Living inductee will do a question and answers session. And unfortunately, this last year, our living inductee passed away, but Joe Frazier Jr. stepped in and did. You know, Pat Conroy, everyone who I have talked to that's been on the board remembers Pat Conroy having them in the palm of his hands and talking about writing his books, and that the kids were just absolutely, you know, mesmerized by him. So he was a really pretty good entertainer. Anybody can come here, and it's kind of a lot of times geared toward young, you know, kids, maybe more so than adults who are already living life. But you know, there's a lot of inspiration there of what you can achieve, and I think that's probably true of anybody in any age, because you know, some of these people achieve things later in life. So you know, I hope that's what they'll take, and that South Carolina really does have a rich heritage of people who've contributed to the whole country, you know, and to the world, you know, in huge ways. They did. So we've been pretty good as an organization of trying to be inclusive of everybody, and I think we ought to be able to tell that story anywhere you go, because you've always got some inductee that you can talk about to any group that you go to. And I was joking with them. I said, whenever I talk to the kids, and I've done that more than I have adults, they love astronauts, race car drivers, and rock stars. We've got, Darius Rucker's in, and Kel Yarborough, and the three astronauts. So so there's somebody there that you can entertain the kids with and the adults with. There's a market out there for people who want to come and learn history, and I would love to see us that be something in the future to become more of a draw for people that like history. And I think there are people out there, and they'll come to Myrtle Beach. It rains, like it does anywhere else. They want to know something to do. I think they would be fascinated to come to the Hall of Fame. Everybody can see something in themselves in some of these folks, because they really do come from all varied backgrounds and professions. And I tend to lean a little more toward the government people, because that was what I did and what I always aspired to do. And they come from you've got affluent people who've gone on to do successful things, but you've got people who came from absolutely nothing to achieve great things. So you can be inspired, I think, by what you find here. And I know that without even thinking about it, I guess I was, because I was interested in politics and government. I'm up here playing with the buttons and listening to Walter Cronkite, and I would say that's where, in a lot of ways, a lot of it started right here for me, having an interest in public service. And I would think if you were if you're a great athlete, you've got an athlete or two you can pick from, or educators. And you can see where people, maybe even in jobs that don't get all the big attention, like the astronauts and the race car drivers and the rock stars, that you can still make a huge difference as an educator or scientist or some of these things that maybe don't get all the attention all the time. So I'm glad to have that mix in there. The official schalloffame.com is where you can find us online. I want to take advantage more so than we actually have of those videos. They're just really easy to assess online now, to make sure we get those out, because those are a wonderful asset for, I would think, school teachers, for the facility here, or for anybody that wants to learn about any of these folks. It's right there on YouTube, and I want to figure out a way to package that and utilize it so that we can touch a lot of these kids that may never step foot in the Myrtle Beach Convention Center to see it in person. But I'd like for them all to keep coming.